everybody. It is episode 167 of Recotopia. My name is Chris Atkinson, joined by Jeremy Scott.
Hello.
And joined by Aaron Dicer.
Hidely ho, not the airport O'Hara Renos.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Today's big recommend is home fries for some reason.
And it begins.
I can't wait to start talking about this movie. And we'd like to welcome chat who have come in here to watch us talk about movies on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for coming out. Let's start off with some small recommends. Aaron, what do you got?
I've been a bit on a silent film kick recently, going back to the 20s and watching some fun stuff, and finally got around to watching Safety Last. And this movie blew me away. I was not ready for how much I love this movie. It's Harold Lloyd, which everybody talks about Chaplin. Everybody, talks about Keaton, understandably so. They're very talented, magical silent film actors. I think Lloyd is better than both of them. Here's what makes Lloyd better to me. Lloyd has an authenticity to his comedy that the other two don't. They're a bit more clownish with what they do, which is understandable. It's silent film. You have to overact those kind of things. But the setups and payoffs in this Harold Lloyd film are just as good, and they feel more authentic to me, I think. And so I have a better time watching it. Plus, there's an actual plot here that is really interesting. Just basically, he's trying to survive, make some money. He has a friend that's really good at climbing buildings, and so he makes this wager about him climbing this 5-story building or whatever. And through these setups and payoffs, he ends up having to be the one to actually climb the building. But there's so many great gags, so much fun visual stuff. This is on Criterion, and I highly recommend it. I just had a blast with this movie. So yeah, Safety Last.
I have to admit that I have not seen nearly enough Harold Lloyd in my life, and so I do need to watch a few more, and I need to watch more of. I mean, I've watched a lot of Chaplin, and I've watched some Keaton, and I have not watched very much Harold Lloyd at all. So I still need to catch up on a lot of these. I don't think I've had an opinion among these three who's best or whatever, but you're right. He kind of gets buried under those other two all the time, even though I've heard he's brilliant. So it's one of those. It's one of those.
It's
type
like
of
the
things.
third tenor.
Yeah, just
exactly.
So this is one that I'm gonna have to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's good.
It's one that is sorely missing on my list. So I've heard of it many times. I'm gonna have to watch it. But all right. I caught up to the Nathan Fielder spectacle, The Rehearsal, second season that just came out, finished, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, maybe finished. I don't know how long ago it was. I long ago recommended the first season of this. I think way back in episode 33 is what I think I saw of this. The second season has Nathan Fielder worried about airline safety and the communication between pilots and co-pilots, and the fact that the main pilot seems to take control and ignore co-pilots in certain situations where crashes occur, and the co-pilots aren't strong enough to say something when the pilot is not doing what they're supposed to be doing and everything. And if you've ever seen how he tries to solve these problems, they are always these unique, weird, logical leaps that he goes on, and he goes on these huge things where he has people rehearse the things that they're going to do before they're going to do it. And this goes on so many different kinds of tangents, but of course they are very comedic tangents. One of the first things that he does is he wants to get a bunch of pilots to judge a singing competition, because he feels like people will be more inclined, like he wants to figure out if they will be able to tell these people something, not only tell them that they're rejected, but tell them in a way that they'll still be liked afterwards. And so there's this whole thing where he creates an entire singing competition called Wings of, what is it? Wings of, you know what it is.
I don't, it's like Wings of Voice or something like that. Yeah.
Wings of Voice. And he does this whole thing where they're judging a singing competition. Then he starts like getting to know some of the pilots that are a part of it. And one guy he notices is single, and doesn't have a girlfriend. So he like tries to get there's a whole bunch of other things. I don't want to totally ruin everything that he gets into, but at some point he gets some of his actors to like want who think this pilot is attractive to go date him. He's like, I can't tell you to go date him. I'm just saying, because he's very careful about what he tells all these people to do. I'm just saying, if you want to shoot your shot, I'm not going to get in the way. And so like one of the actresses starts talking to him, and they start dating a little bit, and he's like following them around like unawares, and then like trying to figure out how he interacts on a date and whether or not this translates into him being able to communicate in the cockpit. There's just so many different weird little tangents that are funny, and just like it makes you think about a lot of stuff. Like I could go on probably just I could write essays about this show, because it's one of those type of things where like, yes, the techniques that he is using are not probably anything that people would want to practice or utilize. This is all for comedy and everything like that. However, it gets into some like just deep stuff about how we interact with each other, and you know, do we have the capability, even if you came up with a solution, a solution like he comes up with in this, would people be willing to implement it because it's too crazy or whatever, it's too weird? And then there's like a tremendous surprise by the end of this series. It's only 6 episodes, but I don't know if I've done this show any justice, because I'm trying not to tell you everything about it. Like it's one of those shows that you want to kind of discover each new thing that he tries, and each thing is more ridiculous than the last. But man, the whole breakdown of the Sully Sullenberger thing, that is one of the most amazing episodes of television I've ever seen in my life. Him reading the Sully autobiography and trying to figure out what Sully would do in these situations, and rehearsing the way Sully did things all the way. I don't want to even go further, farther than that. Go watch this show if you get off. 6 episodes, you can get it done in a day if you had to. A brilliant show that I think a lot of people have already talked about it, but I just wanted to go ahead and throw in my 2 cents and say I thoroughly enjoyed this.
I'm going to watch it at 1.4 times speed.
Yes. He kind of goes on a weird balancing act between like Borat and some other kind of like thing where you're mixing reality and fiction all in one. It's not cringe, but it borders, like it kind of like gets almost there to cringe before pulling back, I guess. I don't know how to really describe it.
It's impossible to describe. You just have to watch it. Like, and that's part of the genius of his brain. Like, you're watching how his brain is piecing things together, these disparate things that most people wouldn't compare or think have anything to do. The role of Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, in this show is mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing stuff. And nobody else could do this but him. It's a singular project. It blew me away. First season blew me away. I think second season's even better. I think
it is too.
I I think there's some misunderstandings about him from people who haven't watched it or whatever, that it is more of the Borat thing, and just making fun of people and that kind of stuff. And there was some hubbub about one of the contestants on the, the singing show feeling like they were misled and they spent a bunch of money to be there. And by the time you get to the end of the season, though, you go, you weren't misled. This was an actual singing. The girl that won the singing show is getting a lot of publicity right now, and she's amazing. She's an incredible singer. So I don't know. It's hard to explain. The best way for me to verbalize it is you will understand how much somebody is willing to commit to the bit. Like you've seen people commit to bits before. I don't know that you've seen somebody commit like this. It's wild.
Well, and not only does he build on this whole thing about pilots and co-pilots and the communication there, he somehow also incorporates his own work into the thing and builds off of that. Like, he even brings the show he did on Paramount into this in a brilliant way. Just, oh my God, man. It's one of the, like I said, I don't want to ruin it for people who haven't seen it. There's so many moments in this show, but go see it. I mean, find it on Max or whatever and watch it and, report back to me when you get done. Report back.
It's wild. It's good stuff.
All right, Jeremy, what do you got?
There's a new Mike Birbiglia special on Netflix called The Good Life. And he is currently one of my 3 or 4 favorite stand-up comedians going. There's something, Chris, this is the show you and I saw in December with our better halves. Only he's added some to it. It's longer. And there's something in his comedy that almost no other stand-ups do. And it's the way he hits you in the feels, as the kids say. I can go to an 8 Bar Gatesy show, and one of the best things about him is I can take a 5-year-old cousin or something, and because it's all super clean, and I'm gonna laugh my ass off and have a great time. But when I go to a Birbiglia show or I watch a Birbiglia special, I laugh my ass off, but I also have emotions. Like, he has poignant moments of humanity that I take away from every time I see something that he does. This show in particular has moments where he talks about his father. He talks about his father off and on throughout the entire special, but they didn't have a super close relationship, and his dad was one of those guys that doesn't say I love you a whole lot. And the way he pulls laughter out of that, but then also underscores it with humanity is a very unique thing that I don't see anyone else doing. And it's why I'm glad that we have him and that he exists. There's an incredible run here where he tells a story about taking a kid to some kind of playland place.
Urban Air.
And he's very derisive of this place. And he talks about all the forms you sign before you go in there with you and your kids. But then he talks about what those forms didn't say he couldn't do in terms of his stand-up comedy. There's a great bit. I don't know if you saw the photo, but a couple years ago, a bunch of American comics went and met with the Pope, and there was a viral photo of all of these comics together with the Pope. When he tells that story, it's hysterical. And there is one Catholic Church joke in this special that did make me laugh, but before I laughed, I gasped at the audacity of that joke. And I feel like he's one of the only people that could pull it off. If you like his comedy, I feel very strongly you will like this special. If you've never seen a Birbiglia anything, I might have you go back and start with one of his earlier ones. Because a lot of his comedy is his own life. And so this is full of stories about his daughter, who's now 9, and the earlier stand-up stuff, like before they even have a kid. Anyway, it's just great. I love it. It's on Netflix, The Good Life.
And this goes to show, we just said Nathan Fielder, you could only do this with Nathan Fielder. Mike Birbiglia is the only one who can kind of say this joke.
Mm.
There's that great Ricky Gervais show where Liam Neeson comes on for a guest thing, and he's talking about wanting to do comedy, and everything he wants to do with comedy involves somebody having AIDS, and Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant saying, like, you know, you can't say that, and Liam Neeson's like, he gets away with it. Why does he get to go away with it? And it's just you have to define who you are as a performer. Like, this is the type of thing that I do, and if you're not set for that, then don't get mad when I get to that point, because I've already and so that's how they sort of get away with it, is that they're already defined who they are or whatever. There's probably a lot more to it, but it is that joke. I remember that joke, and I'm just like, I think I was the same way. I was like, can you say that? I guess Mike Birbiglia can say that, you know? So anyway, I would recommend this too, even though I haven't seen the actual Netflix special. I've seen most of these jokes, obviously. So yeah, this he's always good. So
yeah.
All right, let's get on to our big recommend, which is Home Fries. And this is Aaron's pick. So Aaron, take it away.
Speaking of singular voices who know themselves well enough to do things nobody else could do, I am the only one in the history of movie podcasting who could recommend the movie Home Fries. Home Fries is a 1998 film directed by Dean Parisot and written by Vince Gilligan. It made a whopping $10 million at the box office, but if they just waited another year to release it, it would have been in 1999 and therefore a beloved movie.
Yes.
The movie starts with some Dean Martin crooning about what memories are made of as a man pulls through a drive-thru at the local Burgermatic with Drew Barrymore playing Sally Jackson, serving him a $7 shake that seems to have come with a side of unplanned pregnancy. He tips with a $100 bill, and she returns a tip about going back to his wife and leaving her alone. So the now ironic memories starts back in, and he starts to head home. But just after he puts his wedding ring back on, his car is stopped in its tracks by a helicopter playing chicken on the road. Meanwhile, Sally is arguing about not cleaning the shake machine tonight, but picking up some of that chatter from the aforementioned chopper in her headset. Turns out they can hear her too, which is a bum deal, since they're using a high-tech military chopper for a prank. A prank that, thanks to a dropped medicine bottle, caused the cheating man to die of a heart attack. The next day, the two chopper pilots, Dorian, the nice one forced into this mess, played by Luke Wilson, and Angus, the troublemaker gung-ho to make the mess, played by Jake Busey, are arguing about how to handle the people that heard their little accidental manslaughtering the night before. So they take their truck over to Burgermatic and confirm the situation. We then cut to the sheriff giving the news to the man's wife, Beatrice, played by Catherine O'Hara, who collapses in a heap before her sons come home to comfort her. And that's right, it's the two pilots who scared the guy we now know was their stepdad to death the night before. After suddenly composed Beatrice gets the scoop, the three of them figure that Dorian should now go get a job at the Burgermatic to see what was heard over there. Dorian does get the job, but not before offending a mourning Sally by asking her if someone she knew died. He then learns how to put a burger together while oh so slyly asking if the headsets they use ever pick up anything interesting. And is Michael Jackson around? Because I have rarely seen such smooth criminals. Next up, Dorian is tasked with being Buzz Burgermatic for a birthday party because the theory is that Buzz is supersonic and delivers the food super fast. But Buzz gets caught in the walk-in freezer, and wouldn't you know it, right when the town drunk decides to hold the Burgermatic hostage at rifle point. He eventually makes enough noise to be let out by the crazy guy with the rifle, but he uses the old bullet in the burger trick to cause a distraction while he takes down the random man. Oh, except he's not random. He's Sally's drunk dad. Because in this movie, everyone is related. Back at home, Dorian and Angus are treated to an earful from Beatrice, who now wants whoever her husband was sleeping with dead as well. The next day at work, Dorian apologizes to Sally with a model of a helicopter, as one does. And Sally appreciates it so much, she does the only sensible thing and invites Dorian on a first date as her Lamaze partner. We then spend 5 minutes in one of the most awkward and ridiculous meet cutes ever written into a script. And that's right. Now Dorian is falling for the one girl that could be the witness to that time he accidentally purposefully murdered his stepdad. Now it's funeral day, and apparently in a small town, the way you call off work for a funeral is to march into the restaurant and announce you're going to the funeral, as both Dorian and Sally do this consecutively. At the funeral, Dorian sees Sally lurking and kicks a flower arrangement to make sure no one else sees that she was there. He's starting to put together the connection, and in the car ride home, we get the sense that his family isn't that far off either. If date 1 at Lamaze wasn't enough, Sally decides date 2 should involve access to dangerous military aircraft. And is that a 1997 John Hawkes bragging about his relative tumescence? It sure is. Anyhow, the date goes well, and Dorian confirms what we knew, that Sally was the other woman. Sally says no good relationship can exist in lies, but before he can come clean about everything, they kiss, and he forgets that he was going to do the right thing until later for maximum third act conflict. She then tells him there might be some pictures of her back at his dad's office, so she's going to go tell the wife before she finds them. Dorian says he thinks that might not be a good idea, and then races to his dad's office to get rid of the pictures in question. But just as he pockets the offending photos, Angus shows up out of nowhere and mistakenly thinks a woman from a different photo is the woman they're after, so they head straight to her trailer to gas her to death, as one does. Dorian knows it's the wrong woman and is smart enough to try to save her, but stupid enough to try to give mouth to mouth in a room where he is also breathing in the gas. Angus drags him out and the woman lives, and Beatrice thankfully confirms it couldn't have been her. But she also must have a bit of Sherlock in her because she counts the prints and notices that a few are missing. The negatives are hard to see, so Angus says he'll have a new batch printed out. Elsewhere in the house, Dorian is burning the original prints when there's a knock at the door. It's Sally, who has come to apologize to Beatrice, but when Dorian answers, she puts 2 and 2 together and gets forlorn. Dorian chases Sally home, and Angus chases Dorian since he got the photo developed and knows the truth. Now everyone knows, and after Beatrice throws a fit, she asks to be alone with Angus so she could gaslight him some more by talking about counting steps or something. Oh, and sure, Dorian's her favorite, but only by about, this much. And now the race is on. Angus duct tapes Dorian into a closet, but he manages to escape and race to Sally's house. But when he gets there, Beatrice and Angus beat him there, and everyone seems to be having a grand time. Angus isn't there now, but Dorian doesn't trust it, so he goes on a rampage, and no toilet or gas oven is safe. And just as it looks like Dorian will get the old innocent guy is labeled insane when they tell the truth cliche stuck to him, Angus shows up in the chopper to reveal the truth and kick off the third act climax. A climax that involves another chopper and pickup face-off, but this time with live ammo and a brother/son who can't decide which part of his family to kill. Eventually, Angus breaks and flies off, and all that's missing is the helicopter cutting an electrical line like it's a metaphorical umbilicus. All of the hubbub has sent Sally into labor, of course, and after giving some thought between contractions, she decides that the stepson of her baby daddy, who she just found out was murdered by his gaslighting mother through him and his brother, is exactly the person she wants in the delivery room with her. Proving the point that families are all messed up, but love can overcome the trauma, or something. And that is Home Fries. What did you guys think of this movie that I recommended?
Yeah, so I immediately realized I had not seen this movie. I'm pretty sure my old theater got this back in the day, but I did not watch it before. So went into this not knowing what I was getting into. So I'm going to start with the positive on this, and that is the performances in this are all good.
Yes.
First off, Catherine O'Hara, I mean, because this movie didn't do well at the box office. This is kind of a hidden gem for Catherine O'Hara, who's gotten this big, huge renaissance over the last 5 years. And has now sort of become a legend. I think people have sort of like gone back and realized, oh, she's always been good. It wasn't just Home Alone or, you know, a couple of the Christopher Guest movies that she was in and all that. But yeah, she's fantastic in this. I've always had a thing for Drew Barrymore. I think this was kind of one of those, and I love this little red curly thing, wig or styling that they've done on her hair and everything. But I've always liked her. I think it's one of those things where she's coming back from a horrendous childhood and being a teenager, of like being a tremendous alcoholic and drug user and all this. And, you know, she had, I think E.T. is the first movie that I can remember seeing in theaters. And so she's in that. But then she had this long period of time where, you know, she was going through a lot of stuff, and then kind of had a comeback with Scream. And this is sort of her comeback trail here. But she was in a lot of movies like this. It feels like in this period of time, like Mad Love and Riding in Cars with Boys and all these things. But I love her in this. Luke Wilson, hey, he feels like a friend, right? Like he's the guy that in every movie he's Luke Wilson, and he acts like this, and he, you know, he does this type of thing. And he works perfectly fine in this. And I love Jake Busey, who was also having this huge late 90s surge. You know, I love how this starts. It's ridiculous. The whole thing, how this is their plan. Get in a chopper, run and find the father, make him have a heart attack. And then that's how we're gonna do this. Okay, that's how we're starting off. And then like the cops on the scene, the one guy like wants to take a picture with the dead body, and he's like, I know I'm going to hell for this, but whatever, or whatever. I thought that was beautiful. I wanted the whole movie to be this kind of tone, like very good-natured, dark comedy, but it didn't really continue doing that. It fell very, very, like, you know, predictably into this whole guy likes the girl, guy's lying to the girl falls in love with the guy who's lying to her. Finally, he has to admit that he's been lying this whole time. And then, of course, Rachel Lee Cook says, I was a fucking bet. And then, you know,
does she say fucking in that movie?
Yes, she does.
That's wild.
Yes, she does. So yeah, I love the beginning of this. I love all the ridiculousness in the movie. I just don't think that it continues that tone all the way through. And it's one of those type of things where I'm like, oh, but you started off so like, you know, the kind of movie I want to watch. Then you fit like a glove into this old tropey romantic comedy type of thing, and I wasn't a big fan of it. But like all the while, performances are good. I thought but it's so that's so contrived at the beginning. But I could have dealt with that if it was just consistent throughout. Anyway, that's really all I got to say about this movie, is that, you know, it was something that I felt like, oh, maybe I missed out on this when it came out back in the day. And then I realized, oh, I didn't really miss out at all. So,
well, I mean, IMDb says that he wrote the script, Vince Gilligan, when he was in film school. So that sort of makes sense to me. It does feel, I mean, when I got done watching it, I was like, well, that wasn't that bad. That was enjoyable enough. Like, it's not awful. And I think Drew Barrymore's charming enough, and Catherine O'Hara is engaging enough that anybody could get through this and end up with a smile on their face here and there. But like you were saying, Chris, my biggest note was tone. It just feels like tonally it's not sure which way it wants to go, and so it ends up doing multiple tones that end up uneven. And yes, it is wildly veering from super unconventional choices to really tropey conventional choices. But again, I think that's probably just from inexperience. of the filmmakers. I know I did write a lot of notes. If we were making a CinemaSins video for this movie,
let's go.
I would have so many questions about the process of checking out a helicopter from the army base and how ammunition works in the military. Because I'm pretty sure they count it all. And I don't think you can just go out at 2 a.m. and grab a chopper from the base and fly it wherever you want. I would probably have half of a Sins video just about how the military operates in this movie. But I'm like you, Chris. I felt like the opening scene was a big swing, and I feel like it's bookended. Both of the helicopter chases, one causes a heart attack, one causes a birth. I feel like there's some clever, knowledgeable stuff in here. But then what's in the middle, what's in between those two wild bookends is really pretty straightforward, conventional stuff. Another thing IMDb told me that I'm not sure I'm ready to believe is true is that Robin Williams was slated to play her dad and then dropped out a few days before they filmed.
It must have been a completely different thing at the time Robin Williams was considered, because Vince Gilligan wrote this fucking movie. That's one of these things where you're just like, really? Did Vince Gilligan really? I wonder how much of his script is in this movie and then how much got changed afterwards. But then you have the director like Dean Parisot or Dean Parasot or Dean whatever, who did Galaxy Quest the following year. Like, obviously he's fairly capable of doing this type of things. I don't know what this feels like, a movie that got a little noted to death in whatever. And the thing that Robin Williams would play at the height of his career, would play the drunk dad that comes walking in doing the falling down or whatever.
I don't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense at all. So
yeah, and it does feel like the kind of movie that might have been overnoted. I have serious issues with the title of this movie. Like, I do not understand how we arrived at the title of this movie. I do not.
So
if somebody would have at least said the phrase home fries while standing over a griddle at the restaurant, that would have made sense to me.
In fact, I only saw one reference, and that was on the menu board in the background. They were selling home fries. So
yeah, they are some hash browns, but we never see any home fries. It is obviously a play on home fires, like keep the home fires burning, and like the idea being that this is a movie about family and, how home fries or whatever, and that is also a breakfast food. But it's not in the movie at all either. So
I mean,
it's a stretch.
Okay,
for sure.
I mean, I don't know what you call it otherwise, but yes, there's the movie and its title did not have any kind of connection for me. And I mean, I also read from a lot of people that it was apparently marketed like as a straight rom-com, and so
this
when
is
people
the issue.
went to see
I can confirm that the trailers
other
for
stuff
this
was like off-putting and surprising, and so maybe the marketing department didn't do this movie any favors.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it was just the marketing department. I will say, watching this movie again this many years later was quite the experience. You realize over, 27 years, how much the way you view movies changes. And, I loved this movie. And I think part of the reason I loved it was for the quirkiness, was for that Vince Gilligan voice, was for there's some interesting choices. There's a shot that starts on her pregnant belly from above and then kind of pans back to show her walking down the sidewalk. Like, there's some creative camera work that's going on here, and I laughed a lot. There's a lot of laugh lines in this movie that work for me. I was completely unaware of the tone disparity when I loved this movie, and it is so drastic. And I have a theory. My theory is that this is the director's fault, that this is Dean, let's say Parisot, that this is because when you watch Galaxy Quest, this is a movie that is written to be both funny and heartfelt. I don't think this movie was written to be heartfelt. I think this movie was written to be more Coen-esque, more dark comedy, more, weird, quirky. And I think Dean imbued those date scenes, which are ridiculous. She takes him to Lamaze class for their first date. This is a terrible idea. They go see a military chopper for their second. Like, this is ridiculous stuff, but the movie plays it like it's actual rom-com stuff.
Well, in the Lamaze class, did you guys get sexual tension out of the Lamaze class like I did? I thought that was weird too.
Well, that's that tone disparity. It's supposed to be awkward and cringy and weird, but I think the director wanted this to be a rom-com. He wanted that, fall in love kind of stuff instead of just like swimming in the weirdness. There's even some lines, like there's a throwaway line that the Lamaze teacher has as she's just walking away, and she just throws it away, but she says, "You don't get pregnant with your legs together. The baby's not going to come with those legs together." Something like that. But the way it's said in the movie, it's just kind of this thing that the Lamaze teachers, say. It's not a joke. It's not. It's like, it's almost like the director took this, script that was dark and comedic and weird, and tried to make it into 50 First Dates or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel when I watch it now. When I watch it now, I'm like, this is a missed opportunity. I think the script is really good. I think this is a missed opportunity to make probably what Vince was feeling when he wrote it in film school. But that's kind of how it feels to me.
I'd like to be. I didn't get a chance to get around to this, but I would like to see if Vince Gilligan has talked about this movie openly and said, "This is what I intended with it," or whatever. And knowing, I've seen plenty of Gilligan interviews. He may have just been like, "Yeah, I thought that was okay how that came out," and blah blah blah, or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
In his charming West Virginia drawl, but I would like. This is one of those movies I would really like to know how did it start, who changed what, and this is the final product. This is one of those. It's not like it's a movie that's has its thumbprint on movie history or anything like that. So there's probably not very many deep dives into this thing. But I'd love to know. I'd really love to know. It would be a fascinating story to me.
A couple of lines that I wanted to mention because they always crack me up. When Catherine O'Hara finds the condoms and she says, he never used these with me. I never felt no rainbows. The way she delivers that is so good. It kills me every time. I love the moment at the funeral home where Luke Wilson sees the body and tries to signal to Gary Busey that they shouldn't be having this conversation when there's a dead body in the room, and Gary Busey thinks he means, "Hey, why don't we take the jacket off that dead body so that you dress up better for this?" Like, just as if that's what he meant. That kills me. And then just another indication that this movie understands how silly it is one of the last lines that Luke says when the baby has been born or whatever is, "Your mother wasn't married to your father, but your father was married to your grandmother." And it's just like, how do you turn that into sentimental? It's just that tone thing that we're talking about. But yeah, anyways, this movie still makes me laugh, even as a tone disparity kind of makes me cry.
By the way, speaking of everybody's related to each other and blah blah blah, and it's a small town. Apparently everybody knows each other except Drew Barrymore and Luke Wilson and all the main characters.
Right.
It's like, because everybody else seems to be living in this town except Luke Wilson and Jake Busey and Catherine O'Hara. They seem to be like alone in this town, and then everybody else knows each other. So that was another weird thing to me about this movie.
Yeah.
So all right, let's go to our super secret double feature.
Can't wait.
And what do you got, Jeremy?
Okay, I'm gonna give you my real one, and then you go, and then I want to give you. Aaron inspired me last week when he wrote the whole summary of the movie that disguised what his thing was. So I have a silly one that I did that with, but I don't want to accidentally So I'm going to give him my real one. Tone wise, this was really hard for me to match because the tone of this movie doesn't match itself. But I'm going with Happy Texas. This is a Steve Zahn movie about two criminals, escaped criminals on the run who end up in a small Texas town. They're mistaken, a la Bug's Life, for gay pageant directors and decide to hide out in this town pretending to be gay pageant directors, even while one of them falls in love with a woman and the other one is being pursued by a man. And I haven't seen it in forever, but tonally it strikes the same kind of balance of crime, romance, caper, identities, murky, etc. I just kept thinking about Happy Texas, so I'm going to go with Happy Texas.
Okay, all right. I can't even remember if I saw Happy Texas. I remember that movie coming out, but I don't know if I saw it. My super secret double feature is going to be Waitress.
Nice.
The 2007 movie with Kerry Russell and Nathan Fillion. It's got the same. There's a sort of a same kind of a setup, not the crime element, but Nathan Fillion is a new person in town who falls in love with Kerry Russell, who is pregnant with somebody else's baby, and that's what reminded me of.
And works at a restaurant.
Yeah, works at a restaurant and all that. So I think it goes. It's a southern town. All these type of things. It's very simple and tone specific, but I think that one goes along with it pretty well. What were you going to say alternate wise?
So here's my synopsis of my super secret double feature. A criminal with mommy issues does a crime with his brother, but there may be a witness. So he infiltrates the witness's world to find out what they know, only to fall in love with her, which drives a wedge between him and his brother. But ultimately, she learns the truth about who he is and what he's done and briefly turns against him before being on his side again. The movie has a car chase, law enforcement helicopter, bad fast food, and a scene with a prominent rose. And that movie is 2010's The Town.
Ah, yes.
Nice.
I actually thought of The Town during the super secret double feature candidates.
I did too, because of that. Like, I'm gonna get next to her and see what she knows about our crime.
Yeah. The other one has been mentioned in chat, Drowning Mona, which is not a good movie either, but definitely
DeVito?
went. Yeah, Danny DeVito's in it. But it's one of those movies that it actually nailed the dark tone, but it's also not all that funny. So it's one of those type of things where, like, you know, not that I remember anyway. Who knows? Maybe if I watch it now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's really funny. I don't know. I remember watching it and just not liking it at all. But I like that part in the chat. People were talking about that, and I thought that was a good one as well.
That is a good one.
All right, let's go to our homework for next week, and it is my turn again. And who knows? This might be as polarizing as this movie is. I'm not sure. But 2006, The Fountain, Darren Aronofsky's movie that I think has gotten forgotten over the years. I hated this movie when I first watched it. I have grown to really appreciate it over the years, and I think I love it now. And I'm gonna love going into the deep dive on this one. This is prime mid 2000s Hugh Jackman being obsessed territory. So, you know, it comes right on the heels of The Prestige or whatever. So, like, this time he's looking for a cure for a disease of his wife Rachel Weisz, and I think we would go to the ends of the earth to save Rachel Weisz. So it makes
Who
sense.
among us would not?
Exactly. I think that's the point. Rachel Weisz,
go halfway.
Anything below Rachel Weisz, she'll be okay. All right. Looks like we have some time for some questions. Let's take a look at what's in. Yes, any questions? This question. People always ask who we want to see as the next James Bond, but what actor would you love to see take on a role as a Bond villain?
Nice. I like that question.
Yeah,
I do too.
Bond villains. I can kick us off. I think Joaquin Phoenix would be a great Bond villain.
Assuming he
Mhm.
doesn't back out right before shooting.
Assuming that. And then Charlize. Charlize Theron, I think, would also be a pretty incredible villain in that regard.
Yeah.
So those are my two choices.
Hot on the heels of her Fast and Furious villain turn.
Sure,
might
yeah.
as well just go ahead and make her a Bond villain while we're at it.
I like it.
I have chosen Vin Diesel. I think he's got the look of a Bond villain. I think he would be. I think he'd be good as the villain. We've seen him in Pitch Black, sort of be the like an anti-hero type of character. I'd like to see him full on villain and everything. I also thought Paul Mescal would be a good Bond villain. So there you go.
Nice.
There is, by the way, a new James Bond video game coming next year that looks incredible. It's from the people that made the Hitman games. And it's going to combine like stealth and action and shooting, and it looks really cool. My answer is Ben Foster, and just watch 310 to Yuma, and you'll get an idea of what Ben Foster can do as a villain and how menacing he can seem. He's more menacing in that movie than Russell Crowe. Now, Russell Crowe wasn't trying to play menacing. He's the nice bad guy. But yeah, that was the movie that made me go, holy shit, Ben Foster, I didn't know you had that in you. That's the same guy that was in that Kirsten Dunst high school musical romance, whatever it takes, or just go with it, or whatever it was called. Like, he was the awkward dude who liked the hot girl, and now he's like a badass actor. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it weird? We see these movies, and it's like this somebody that you just completely randomly you forget about him completely, and then you watch a bunch of this person's work, and then you come back and later and see something. You're like, oh, is that was him? Yeah. He was doing that stupid shit. Okay. Over in the chat, we have Castro says Giancarlo Esposito, hands down. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's how can you not, right? Wally says Daniel Craig. That would be quite the twist. That would be interesting. I would watch that. Let's see. Josh says Vanessa Kirby. You know what? I'm down with Vanessa Kirby, whatever she wants to be in. I'm down with that. Nolan says Hugh Grant as a Bond villain. I think he could be. I mean, he was a pretty good villain in Paddington. Might as well. And I think
Heretic.
I think he's kind of and Heretic. I think he's kind of developed this career, the second stage career as a villain, but apparently he hates acting, so I don't know. Alan says Idris Elba would be good, of course. Yeah, somebody that we've always liked to see as Bond would be a good villain too. I mean, could be a good villain too. Shaggy says Carl Urban. I'm down with that. Slab says Jenna Ortega or Ana de Armas. They're in everything. Why the hell not? I'm totally down with that. There we go. Let's go on to our next question. If you could have anyone, real or fictional, as a GPS voice, who would you choose? I got to tell you what, guys. Selena Gomez and Christina Ricci have voices that I have fallen in love with. I don't know if that's the way it is for the rest of the population. I know Selena Gomez is a popular singer, or so I've heard. But Selena Gomez, I love her voice, and I love Christina Ricci. I just love the way they talk, and I would love to have them as GPS voices. So I'm totally down with those.
Do you remember those commercials when they announced? I think it was back when they still had like Garmin, and like before your phone just did your GPS for you, but they announced like Darth Vader was going to be a voice you could have. The commercial was Darth Vader in the booth constantly fucking up Roundabout because he was like Roundabout. I'm going to go with Ron Howard because I would be too distracted by a sexy woman's voice, and I just want that nice, casual, non-threatening, friendly Ron Howard voice, not the Ron Howard from the episode of The Studio, but the real Ron Howard, who's nice and not screaming.
The narrator from Arrested Development.
Yes.
Yes.
I want Stewart from the SNL sketch The Californians as my GPS voice. Voiced by Fred Armisen in that sketch. So then you go down to the I-5 and then that sketch kills me. I heard them talking about recently, Fred Armisen talking about recently that voice came from somebody's teenage son that was like hosting or something, and they were doing an imitation of their teenage son just being a dork, and he loved the voice so much he just used it, and they didn't know he was going to use that voice until showtime. In in the you know, the dress rehearsal, he used a different voice or whatever, and so you can kind of see them break when he goes into that voice. So anyways, yes, great GPS.
Over in the chat, there's some overlap, I think, from the villain question earlier and then the voices, but we'll go ahead and say them just in case. Michael Menza says Gary Oldman, who I think would be a good Bond villain and GPS voice. Josh says, Patrick Stewart, who I think would be a great Bond villain and GPS voice. Then Slab says ScarJo, of course. ScarJo definitely has a great voice. Ana de Armas, of course, yes. Josh says Samuel Jackson, but really Sam Neill. Well, you can't really go wrong with any of those Sams at all. Let's see. R1MA78 says Barry White. Yes, absolutely. Nice. Nolan says John Malkovich as KGB from Rounders. Amazing. Michael says Marilyn Monroe. We also have
keep hanging a right.
Yes. Pay that toll. It's money.
What does he say? Give up a monster.
Yes. Sir Cummings Dump. I don't know. I'm probably saying something dirty there. John Benjamin would be great. I agree. I love H. John Benjamin's voice. Shaggy Nut says J.K. Simmons from Whiplash. Then we have Gilbert Gottfried. And then someone also mentions Jeremy. Josh says he wants to have Jeremy as his GPS. That's not surprising. And then we have many, many, many more.
I did once get asked to officiate a wedding and to sin the bride and the groom during the actual ceremony. And I turned them down.
I gotta say, having people ask you to send them is the most uncomfortable, weird thing ever. Yes. You remember that we went to that convention that one time, and this girl, like in a bee costume or fairy costume, I can't remember what it was, came up and said, "Send me." And we were both like, no. We don't do that type of thing. No, sorry. Anyway, going on to the next question. What's the best running gag in a show or series that you can think of? Example, the hamster ball that Dewey set free in Malcolm in the Middle, and it keeps showing up in the background.
A couple of my favorite running gags, Arrested Development. There's so many great running gags in Arrested Development, but nobody being able to know how to make a chicken sound in Arrested Development always cracks me up. And then in BoJack, always referring to Margot Martindale as beloved character actress Margot Martindale cracks me up every single time. To the point where in my own life, anytime I refer to Margot Martindale, my temptation is to refer to beloved character actress Margot Martindale.
Well, since I answered this question, which was many weeks ago, I have seen Paddington 3. So I'm going to change my answer on the fly and go with the big purple tarantula in Paddington 3, which as soon as you see it for the very first time, you know it's going to recur. But the way that it shows up in the final scene is just hysterical to me, because that is exactly where it had to be for this movie to be perfect. Anyway, so Paddington 3, Tarantula.
Yeah, and Aaron's mentioned Arrested Development. It's the king of this. I think nearly that whole series is a whole bunch of continuous callbacks and running gags and everything, and it'll call back something seasons earlier that was a very minor thing.
Yep.
But one of my favorites in Arrested Development is the guy with one arm who gets hired by George Bluth to keep teaching the kids lessons. I think that's one of my favorite running gags. It's like always like it's some flashback where somebody does something innocuous, and then this one arm guy comes in and gets his arm ripped off, quote unquote, and then always says, and that's why you never do this or whatever. And that's the sort of the theme of that running gag. Also, the buzzard noise that happens every time they show the nuclear plant in The Simpsons, which, from what I understand, one of the producers of The Simpsons early on always made that note. Every time you establish the nuclear plant, the buzzard sound has to occur. So I can't remember who did that. It was like George Meyer or one of those producers did that. Made the note that there's always got to be a buzzard noise. And
that's
I love
awesome.
that.
So
Over in the chat, we have, let's see. None of you have any running gags, apparently. The cursing in The Good Place is one that I see. And then we have, speaking of running gags, a CinemaSins thing. I've made a running gag in real life is explaining things in such a way that I can say also and explain the last thing, and everything looks at me weird and say it's a CinemaSins thing, which is the best excuse to then show folks CinemaSins. If I get $1 for every time I say also, I love that that people out there have taken to stuff where we say also and also, because that's been a thing that's just over the years.
Also times
basically,
three.
Basically, if you have multiple observations that you want to keep in the script, that's why you get the alsos. So there you go. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Once again, chat, thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate it very much. Next week is The Fountain. I think it's on Canopy if you got a library card or that device. I've never used Canopy before, but otherwise, I guess you're going to have to run it. But looking forward to talking about that one next week. But that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next time. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Keep those home fries burning.